Hello everybody, and welcome to your early look of Project Zomboid. You might be asking yourself, if you're a regular viewer of the channel, Mathis, why are you doing a video or an early look on Project Zomboid? You have a huge series, hundreds of episodes long, or not hundreds, but over 100 episodes long, on the game itself. Why are you doing an early look? Well, if you're watching this video, it is November 8th, and the game has officially launched on Steam. And what better time for me to take a more objective look at the game than now? The game finally being in front of millions of people, I felt like it was a great time for me to do a proper early look and kind of critique the game, come at the game at a much more objective angle, and talk about the pros, the cons, what the game's all about, what I like, what I don't like about it, because surprisingly there's a lot I don't like about the game, and there's a lot I like about the game. And I think this is the perfect time to do something like this. So, the first thing you need to know as a viewer, what is Project Zomboid? And Project Zomboid, quite simply, is an open-world zombie survival simulation game. There are RPG elements. In fact, I think the developers tout it as a survival RPG. As the game stands now, it's much more of a simulation. That's how I'm going to be approaching the game, with heavy emphasis on survival. And I mean heavy. You're going to be managing your hunger, your thirst, your body temperature, your wounds, your panic. All these things are going to be things you need to worry about as you play the game and ensure your survival. Now, you might think that certain things are going to be much more difficult to manage than others. For instance, your panic might bring you down. But to be honest, a lot of that stuff is actually really easy to manage. My opinion, even a little too easy. But we'll talk about that stuff when we get to it. First, I want to talk about the gameplay elements and the options you have before you start up a game. So, in the bottom right-hand corner, you have your 3 game modes that are currently in the game. First is going to be your last stand, which is in the furthest to the right, as soon as Dorian goes away. Last stand is essentially your horde mode. It is introduced to the game to kind of give you an idea of how Zomboid mechanics work. You're a single person in the middle of the woods in a cabin with a bunch of different items and weapons and loot and stuff to survive as long as you can. Wave after wave of zombies kind of attack you until you eventually die. It's a good kind of quick Zomboid fix. It's a really good mode to just kind of understand how the game plays, and I think they actually created this mode initially for one of their showings at the Indie Game Festival, maybe, I can't remember, but it was at one of those things, one of those cons. Sandbox and Survival are actually very similar right now. They're just plop you in the gigantic 2-county open world, and they task you with surviving as long as you can. Both start with Romero-type zombies, where they're shamblers or fast shamblers. They lurch at you when they get closer. They have a decent memory. They bang on windows and doors until they break down, and they'll come and eat you as best as they can. The serious difference between the two is that in Sandbox Mode, which we'll go check out now, you can actually customize how the zombies work. So we'll go ahead and start a new game right here, and we'll just check up on the options that are available to you as the player. Alright, here we are. We have all the options available to us. So, initially in Sandbox Mode, you're going to have proper zombies checked off, but you can take care of that no problem. You can adjust everything from speed, strength, toughness, how the virus is transmitted, infection mortality rate, how quick you die when you get infected, reanimation time, cognition, which is basically how they maneuver to the doors. You can have on basic navigation where they just kind of wander in the general area of where you were, all the way up to the point where they actually open doors as opposed to just banging on them. Their memory, how long they remember which direction you went. As time goes, zombies decompose. How do they decompose? Do they have no effect? Do they just become weaker? Do they just become slower? Or does it have a combination of the both? Their sight, is it poor sight or eagle vision? Their hearing, pinpoint or through poor, and smell, poor through bloodhound. All these things are completely options that you can legitimately change the way the zombies work in your game. And you can even go straight up to sprinters, who basically work exactly as you would have, 28 days later zombies. On the left-hand side, we have how you have these zombies populated. You can have them at normal, from none all the way to insane. How they're distributed, are they distributed uniform throughout the entire map, or are they more urban-focused, which I like to leave it on because it makes more sense. Survivors, we don't have to worry about. NPCs aren't in the game yet. And then options as far as how fast time takes. And then, more important, some world options. Now, there is water and electricity in the game. The electricity dictates refrigerator, stove, microwave, all that good stuff. And water is your water supply, obviously. Those will turn off natively anywhere in the 0 to 2 months range. It could be a week, it could be a month and a week. It could be 2 months at max. All these things are randomly determined when you start the game, but you can change this as well to 0 to 2 months, 0 to 6 months, 0 to 1 year, 0 to 5 years if you last that long. Loot rarity, which is your weapons and food, can be changed here in the menu, as well as temperature and the rain. All the stuff is here so you can tinker and toy with how you want to play the game. Again, this is huge emphasis on the simulation aspect of the game, which is what it's all about. So we'll go ahead and start a survival game. We'll start playing a bit, and we'll talk about how the game plays, what you want to be focusing on, what I like, what I don't like, etc., etc. So we'll go ahead and start a survival game. And one of the first things we're going to want, don't worry about that other early look one. Let's go ahead and do early look with all caps. We'll start in Muldrow now. There are, like I said, there are 2 counties you can play in. Whoops, let's go back again. Where'd it go? Did it go all the way to the bottom? Oh man, see how many, so you don't even want to know how many times I've played this game. We'll try again. Early look. So there are 2 counties in the game, like I said. This particular menu right here, you choose where you spawn. Now, both of the counties are actually in the game, and you can walk from one end of the map to the other and go to both of the counties. This particular choice right here is merely for your spawn point. So we'll go with classic Muldrow because I know that map nicely. And then we can start with character creation. You have all your customization options. Not a whole lot of customization. I'd like to see later on down the line. I think they have it planned where you could be a bit more specific with how your character wants to look. But for now, it's not really an option. You can kind of toy around with it a little bit. Doesn't really matter. And then next, this is where some of the RPG elements come into the game. So here, you have on the left-hand side your classes, essentially. And your classes represent real-world occupations. And all of them come with certain buffs and debuffs. For instance, the fire officer is an axeman. His benefit, if you choose of being a fire officer, is that he can bust through doors much quicker, double the speed, and he has a faster axe swing. The police officer is a marksman. He has better gun accuracy and is a quick reloader. Park ranger, rain doesn't really affect him, or weather conditions in general don't really affect him, so cold, heat, rain shouldn't affect him. Construction worker is handy. He has faster barricading, and he's thick-skinned, so scratches and bites you have a less chance of getting them when you get attacked. And then security guard has the idea of you don't really need to sleep that much, and you're extra alert even when sleeping, so maybe you hear something outside, your character will wake up from that. This is one of the first critiques I personally have of the game. This is something that's been long overdue for a little bit of love. In fact, very, very long overdue. These particular occupations are not balanced, to the point where I never touch police officer, park ranger, and security guard, and here's why. Security guard has the night owl thing, but if you play this game intelligently, you're very rarely out at night. In fact, going out at night is a surefire way to get yourself killed, because at night, you don't really have the vision you need. On top of that, if you do decide to go out at night and use a flashlight, that kind of gives away your position. So going out at night is typically a bad idea. In fact, I much prefer to sleep through the night and then go out during the day and loot. And Night Owl not only keeps you up at night, or you're going to be up at night generally, but you can't even get him on a sleep schedule because he requires less sleep. So in fact, I think Night Owl, at least for my playstyle, is kind of a pain in the ass to deal with. Park Ranger, kind of nice. Weather effects don't really bother you, but you can kind of avoid them by staying indoors as it is. Though there are points in time, I will say, where you're going to be stuck outside in the rain, and it's going to happen. But it's still not that big a deal unless you're outside for a really long time during the rain. It's a neat little perk. I won't say it's a bad perk, just not one that I'm particularly fond of. And then Police Officer, Marksman, if you're using a gun, you're in desperate times, desperate measures anyway, so you really don't need to worry about it as a big deal, being better accuracy and whatnot. I just think guns are too loud to use, and they should be emergency situations only. So your everyday kind of lifestyle as a police officer is not going to see his perk in use. It's just not. The fire officer is nice because if you get an axe, which you should always gun for getting at some point in the game, is going to allow you to have a much better chance of surviving. Swinging the axe faster, breaking down doors faster means the axe is not going to break or wear down as quickly because you'll be using it less. But honestly, nothing compares to the construction worker and how overpowered the construction worker is. Thick-skinned basically allows you to barely ever get scratched or bitten unless you're constantly getting attacked. And then Handy is just generally a nice buff. I personally would like to see Handy taken away, or Thick-skinned nerfed a little bit, or even removed. I think that's just, thick-skinned is almost I don't know, it's not as realistic as I would like it to be. It's just a very powerful trait. And for that reason, I always pick construction worker because the other classes are not important. Or you could be unemployed and just go in vanilla style. Construction worker, there's just no reason not to pick construction worker. Over here, the next step is picking traits. You've seen a lot of these types of trait picking system. It's a point-buy system in a lot of RPGs and a lot of type games like this. The idea is you pick good traits, it takes away points out of your point pool. Giving you bad traits gives you points. As it stands right now, the traits are a little bit broken because there are certain things in the game that are not implemented that traits exist for. And by that I mean you become angry, quick to anger, short-tempered. You get angry really quickly. But there are no NPCs in the game to make you angry, so this is just a quick point buy. I can just take this and gain 4 points, and I'll never see this being used against me. As well as brooding, recovers slowly from bad moods. Very rarely are you in a bad mood. I mean, if you're smart, you'll never be in a bad mood. Because there are no NPCs to put you in a bad mood. So it's a quick, 6 points. Right off the bat, I have 6 points. I can immediately take Light Drinker, and I could take something along the lines of slower zombification, that's useful. Eagle-Eyed, I could take, for his one trait. I could take Hard Drinker, but there's no drunkenness in the game yet. It was removed. But I could take something like Resilient. Right there, I have 2 amazing traits for the price of 2 penalty traits that I don't take generally. For that reason, I actually never use traits. Sure, maybe Construction Worker's a little broken, but it's not as broken as the trait system is right now. Eventually, we will see this, in full display with a bunch more traits, and there are mods out there that introduce some new traits, which is kind of cool. But as it stands right now, this whole character creation system, as neat as of an idea as it is, and as neat as it will be potentially 6 months, down the line, it's not necessary. It's just kind of here. So for that reason, I don't really worry about it. You pick Construction Worker and I hit play. So let's go right ahead and jump on in. This is definitely going to be, by the way, a much longer early look than the usual 20-minute kind of early look that I do, just because there's a lot to talk about the game, especially for the new players who want to understand how the game works. You're getting it from the horse's mouth, essentially. I've been playing this game for such a long time that I know the ins and outs of the game a huge amount. So the first thing we're going to want to do when the game loads up, the first thing it'll do is it'll plop you in a random house in the area you chose to survive in. You're going to have an inventory system to manage, as well as your character's health and stuff, which we'll take a look at when we pop in. Alright, and here we are, Project Zomboid proper. The first thing you're going to notice when the game pops up is there's a tutorial little survival guide over here. It's going to give you all the basics on how to move and survive and what to do. It's very important that you read this because there's no other tutorial in the game as of right now. And the other thing you're going to notice is that unlike a lot of other games, there's no direction. The game plops you into the world and says survive. And unlike a lot of other games, there's no winning condition. You don't cure the plague. You don't escape the town. You play until you die. And that is the game. It is literally survival at its core. And you cannot win. You can survive for years if you're really good, but that's really difficult to pull off unless you've been playing this game for quite a long time. And even though I've been playing the game for a really long time, I still have an issue surviving more than 6 months. It's very difficult. So the idea that you kind of just get dropped into the world and don't really get explained anything is something that's going to be fixed in the future with more tutorials. But for now, I will try to just guide you along the early steps and show you what this game's kind of all about. So we're going to hit play, and like I said, when you start up the game, you are spawned into a random house in the area that you chose to spawn in. You're going to have a couple things that are important to take a look at. You're going to hit the C button, you can take a look at your character, all of his minor statistics, like how long have you survived, who he's killed. His skill point system, which is typical RPG. You build up skill points, you can spend them on things. The more you do something, the better you get at it. So you build up a general experience that'll gain you a skill point, and then when you max out a block in something, you can put that skill point into it to make it better. That's kind of how the skill point system works. And then health is your one of the more intricate health systems out there. If you ever played something like Unreal World, it's kind of similar to that, where you have your body parts you have to worry about: feet, legs, shins, body, torso, head. All those things can get hurt, and you're going to have to take care of them when you do, by bandaging it, by eating and making sure you're staying healthy, so your body can heal them naturally, essentially. Painkillers work nicely too, all that good stuff. So that's going to be your character tab. Over here is going to be your inventory, and you start with nothing. 0. You got your clothes on your back, and that's it. And you need to loot immediately. Right here is how much you can carry, so everything kind of has a weight component to it that is kind of a hidden weight component. and it'll fill up. And once you go past 8, you become over encumbered and you slow down drastically. And then this other tab, the Loot All tab, is basically showing you everything around you. So since I'm not really close to anything right now, all it's showing me is the loot on the floor, which is non-existent. So to fix that, we can go up to something like this shelf right here. We can pop open the oven, which we're close to, or the cupboard next to it, and see what it has. It has a flashlight, which we could grab if we wanted it, and bring it over into our inventory, and even equip it if we wanted to. But we're not going to worry about that right now. Let's take a look at this mini fridge right here. It has a boring salad and eggplant. Blue means it's cold and refrigerated. Food like this, plants, salads, things that are just not canned, essentially, will rot and will need to be refrigerated. So make sure that your safe house has a refrigeration unit in it. We can go ahead and grab it. We can bring it over one at a time, or we can highlight everything and then drag it all at once. We can drag it right to our inventory here, and it's going to have a little bar. Bringing things over to your inventory is not instantaneous. It does take a certain amount of time. Bigger things take more time. Smaller things take less time. And it's to emulate and simulate that your character's picking things up and putting them either in his pocket or holding them or whatever it is. We'll continue in the house, and you're going to want to loot whatever house you're in immediately. And we can go ahead and take a look. We have a sheet, which is actually pretty heavy. This is a 0.8 weight. We're going to go ahead and grab that sheet and move it into our inventory because we're going to use it. And we're going to take this skirt and we're going to turn this into bandages. So a lot of things have secondary functions. Sheets, one of them, clothing, another. And you can right click on it and do things with it. So I could wear this skirt if I wanted to. I could equip it on my primary, but it won't do anything. It'll just allow me to hold it. If I'm holding something, it typically takes up less weight. That's kind of the benefit to holding something outside of weapons, which you use as weapons, which we'll talk about later. But what we're going to do is take this skirt and rip it into bandages. Because if we get hurt and we get scratched, we're going to want bandages, and that's how we're going to have to deal with it. So there we go. We're going to have some bandages in our inventory, which surprisingly take up no weight. We'll check this cupboard over here. We got a couple more sheets, which we're going to go ahead and grab. And we've lucked out. We're going to go ahead and go outside real quick. And let's check this last room. You can actually open doors by clicking on them or hitting E. Either one works. But I kind of go between both. So we've lucked out. We're in one of the best safe house zones in Muldrow, in the starting zone that we picked. And I say that because the entirety of the house has a fence going all the way around it and has this little opening right here. Now, it kind of can be a problem that we have like kind of this huge choke point right here, and that's the only way out. But eventually we can knock down some areas over here with like a sledgehammer. We can knock down a back out area. Having a fence like this saves me a lot of time when I eventually go into the construction of the game, which I might not be able to cover here in the early look. But having the safe house this early is really good. I don't have to go find it. I won't have to risk my life go looking for it. So you handle movement pretty easily with the WASD keys. I can hit Shift to sprint, and I can right-click to sneak. Right-clicking will also ready my weapon to swing. And sneaking is going to be incredibly important in this game because it allows you to move silently, obviously, as sneaking is concerned. And moving around zombies without being noticed can save you a lot of headache and a lot of hassle, especially when you don't have any weapons. So, the survival aspect of the game is essentially the entirety of the game. Surviving is what you need to do. So everything you do and every move you make, you need to be thinking, how is this going to help me in the long run? So, I actually knocked out one of the main things I do early on, find a safe house. I am going to use that area as my safe house for this quick early look, and what we're going to do next is start looting the nearby houses. The other good thing about where we currently started is kind of a good distance from any, city-packed areas, so zombie population around here shouldn't be too bad. Ooh, this door is unlocked. Now, sometimes you can come across doors that are locked, which that one's locked over there, but this one right here is not. But if it is locked, you can attempt to open up a window, which you hit E on, and he'll start trying to pry open the window. We have lucked out. This house is wide open. But if you hit E on a window, see if we can find one that's locked. There we go. It's going to make that noise that you might be able to hear. I hope you heard that. And he's going to struggle with it. Now, the good thing is that if you let him kind of go at this long enough, he eventually will pry open the window. If you are pressed for time, a cool thing you can do, we'll go over to this window over here, is smash the window. So we can go over, right-click on it. Let's actually go to the one that we can actually enter because there's a cupboard there. Chair we can walk over. We right-click, we'll smash the window, he'll elbow it, and then we can go ahead and hold down the E key and we can climb through a window. Now, smashing window does cut me, so we can check our health real quick. And we are scratched and we are bleeding, so we're losing our health slowly over time. What we're going to want to do is right-click on the bandage, and right-click on the bandage over here, and apply bandage to our left forearm, which you'll go ahead and do. and then we will no longer be bleeding. So now I'll heal back to max over time. Being well fed, eating a lot of food will actually speed that up if we go ahead and eat this boring salad. It will take them a little bit of time to eat the salad because the salad's typically big and messy. But I'll get the well fed. I'll have a better healing and a strength boost. So as you can see, my carrying capacity has temporarily gone up to 10 because we're well fed. And I will heal at a quicker rate because I'm fed. We'll also go. There's different kinds of fed. There's like fed, well fed, and maybe extremely well fed. Then there's the same thing on the opposite end. There's peckish, hungry, and starving, all of which will give you different kinds of penalties. All right, so we'll go ahead in here, and what we're going to do is grab pretty much everything that we can right now. We got a watermelon, which is going to take up a good chunk of space in our inventory. And one of the other main things I'm looking for, it looks like there's some shotgun shells in here. One of the main things I'm looking for is something to defend myself with. So we got to be very careful, because if we run across the zombies, we're only going to have our fists to deal with them. It does look like we found some books, Carpentry for Beginners, Cooking for Beginners, and Cooking for Experts. What these will do is give you a bonus in experience. So if I read Cooking for Beginners, or Carpentry for Beginners, I will then have a huge boost to experience gain when I'm performing carpentry tasks up until level 1 carpentry. And then I need to read some of the expert ones, etc., etc. Kind of a cool way to allow you to gain experience. It does take a long time to read books, though. So the way I like to read the books, if I have time, I'll try to read them all in one sitting, if I have the opportunity to do so. But you can also split them up between multiple days. Okay. So here's a big thing. So you might be thinking to yourself, Mathis, you're getting full on the inventory. What are you going to do now that you're once you're full? So, for instance, if I go ahead and grab these sheets, we can go ahead and grab all. We might fill up. You know, once this well fed actually goes away, we'll actually be over encumbered. But let's see, what else can we grab here? A couple more sheets. Boom, boom. All right, so now we're over encumbered. Moving speed is highly reduced. Look at it, I'm like barely moving fast. If I hold down the sprint button, that's still how fast I move. So what do? You can't carry that much. How am I supposed to take care of it? Well, there are bags in the area. There's different types of bags. There's school bags, hiking bags, plastic bags, all kinds of things. And you're going to go ahead and grab these. And you can equip it, bags like this, on your back or on your secondary. Either one works. It'll allow you to work. You don't really want to put them in your primary unless you only have bags and are only doing a pure looting run. And this will equip this on our back and should take it out of our weight. And then what it's going to allow us to do is give us a second inventory slot. And depending how big the bag is, like this one has a capacity of 15 and gives us weight reduction of 60, it'll give us 15 slots. So we can start packing things into the bag and allow us to carry these. And if we pack everything up, which we will do pretty much everything for, we're going to pack everything up, we should be looking good. We won't be over encumbered anymore. So dealing with that is always useful. And if we ever get in trouble, we can right click on the bag and we can unequip the bag, and then we can go ahead and actually drop the bag, which you'll see it on the ground. We can actually zoom in with the scroll wheel here. And if we need to, it might be in an area where I can't click. Let's see if we can open the window. Climb through. Grab school bag. There we go. That's actually a problem that actually happens more, not often, but more than it should, where you will drop something maybe behind a window or something that you can't see and you can't click on it. I think that'll be fixed in time, where it's going to have to right-click a multiple layers of things kind of situation. And we just had something pop up. We're actually slightly thirsty. So like I said, in this game, you're constantly dealing with the survival aspect of the game. Whoa. A little bit of a bug here. The game is alpha, so you're going to run into situations where you run into areas that kind of turn dark like that. Okay, there we go. So we're getting thirsty, and like I said, this is a survival game. You got to manage your hunger and your thirst just as much as anything else in this game. So how do you do that? Well, luckily we have a bowl in our inventory, and we can use that to drink. But we're going to right-click on this faucet first, and we can drink. We can drink right out of the faucet, and we can take care of our thirst problem immediately. Next thing we're going to want to do is fill up our bowl. So as long as you have something like a bowl, a mug, a pot, an empty soda bottle, anything, you can fill it with water, and you can carry it around. And what your character will do will sip on that water over time to keep himself from becoming dehydrated, allowing him to not have to worry, allowing you rather to not have to worry about thirst. The downside to that is that certain things don't really hold all that much water. So, for instance, a mug or a bowl will not hold nearly as much water as, say, like a cooking pot, for instance. We have a zombie over there. We should be careful. So we got to kind of have to maintain that. All right, let's see if we can pop open this window and check what's in here. One of the things I'm looking for right now is a weapon. We need to make sure I get a weapon. So I'd like to talk about combat a little bit and discuss what combat is all about. If we can find something to fight with. We go to the shelf over here. So yeah, I'm going to be doing this a little bit quicker now that you understand how it works. I'm just kind of keeping this tab open and maneuvering through very quickly the area. I'm not going to worry about too much outside of the basics. I'm not really playing this particular save file long term. That's going to be a different one. Episode 1 of the Steam release of the game is coming out today, so you can keep an eye out for that, where I play the game a lot quicker. But we do have a zombie over here, and we can take care of him. He did hear us. Sprinting is kind of dangerous, like I said. They can hear you. But in order to attack, the way combat works, if you don't have a weapon equipped, or if you have a weapon equipped, you right-click, you hold down right-click, which preps the weapon or your non-weapon in the game. You get close to the zombie, and then you left-click on them, which will perform an action. You can then hold down the right-click button and keep on left-clicking, and there's a stomping animation, which is awesome. Then you can just stomp on the zombie until he dies. You can then check if he has anything on him. He does, by looting the corpse. And with the secondary school bag, which we'll take the one that's not equipped, we'll equip this as our secondary. Boom. And now we have 2 bags equipped. You're going to see this equipped in our secondary, and we can move out. So we have a house over here, which is a little bit dangerous. Dealing with one zombie at a time is actually pretty easy. But this house right here in particular has the door busted down. Always will, always has. And that there's usually a couple zombies in there, so it's a little bit dangerous to go in there sometimes. Though it's not always the case. Zombies are not in the same place every time. We're going to step on this chick until she falls over. It's starting to rain. I can hear it. Maybe it's just windy. Now, I can see the raindrops hitting the ground. I'm not seeing the raindrops come out of the sky. Might just be a visual bug. Let's see if we can pop open this window. Oh, there's a zombie in there. But if we can get in here and take him out without a problem, and he's the only one in here, we won't have to worry about it too much. So the combat itself is pretty simple. That's actually one of the complaints I have about the game, to be honest, is that I don't think the combat is robust enough. And granted, it's a game where combat isn't meant to be incredibly, the incredible focus of the game, but it's really simple. I don't know how they can make it any better, outside of maybe making the game turn-based and making it an RPG in that respect, and I don't think that's what they should do. I just think that, the combat functions. It functions. It's not even that it's bad, just it works, and I don't even have to worry about it all that much. It's just, you right-click, you hold right-click to charge up a swing. Like, for instance, we're going to grab this frying pan. We're going to equip the frying pan as our primary weapon here, and see if there's anything else worth grabbing really quickly. And we'll talk about combat a little bit. So, for instance, like you said, you saw me push the zombie down, but there wasn't any animation to show me gearing up. But this one there is. So I'm going to right-click, and as I right-click and move, you can see him holding it over his shoulder. I can actually move the mouse around on the screen as he does that, and right-clicking and swinging the weapon is just how it works. The longer you right-click the weapon, the more of a powerful swing he's going to give to the enemy. So if I just right-click and immediately just start swinging, he's not going to hit him that hard. So chances are he's not even going to knock the zombie over. If you want to knock the zombie over, you need to make sure you charge up a swing. And we'll go ahead and do that. And we'll swing over here. And we can just knock him on the ground. We'll swing over to his head. And we'll start, oh, there we go. I was going to say, hit him before he gets up. Now we hit a locket. That's adorable. We are getting wet because we are outside. The wetter you get, the slower you become, and the higher chance you have to catch a cold. To catch a cold, you start sneezing. If you start sneezing, you can draw the attention of the zombies. Again, the survival aspects of this game are the most important aspects of this game, and what they've definitely worked on the most. And generally speaking, I could go on for such a long time, but that's the gist of the game. I mean, the game is focused on survival, and what it does, at least right now, it does really well. It'll be interesting to see where this game ends up, now that it's on Steam and that's going to have a much larger audience, and a much larger audience demanding updates. It'll be interesting to see where this game ends up 6 months to a year from now, where we're at. Alright, that's actually important. So things like that can happen, by the way. Houses can have alarms on them. If they do have an alarm, which is randomly determined when the game starts, they will attract all the nearby zombies, obviously causing a huge problem, and you kind of want to move out of the way and get away from them if you can. But again, the survival aspect of the game, it does really well. There's a lot going on under the hood. Zombies are persistent in the world. They're moving around. They're never staying still. There are things in the game that make the zombies move around. In fact, there's like gunshots that can go off in the distance. There's helicopters that fly by near your character to draw zombies near them. House alarms, one good or bad house alarm can change the game completely. Firing off a gun can change things completely. So there's a lot going on here under the hood. So if you're looking for a really good zombie survival or just a good survival simulation game, you look no further. You know, Project Zomboid does a good job at that. If you're looking for something with intricate combat, on the other hand, this might not be the game for you. I mean, there's a ham. That's a new food. The combat isn't amazing, but if you're looking at this game, you should probably already know that this game isn't about the combat. It's not about the combat. As far as deep, complex systems go, outside of the survival aspect, there's not much here yet, though I would say there's a good chunk here to keep you busy for a long time. Whoop, a couple zombies in there banging on doors, which is going to cause some noise, so you want to get out of there. It does what it does really well. And the past 2 years have, seen lots of ups and downs for the studio. The Indie Stone lost, a lot of progress a year or so back when they got robbed. They did a huge engine change. The game looks completely different than it did a year or so ago. And what it does now, it does, like I said, 7 or 8 times by now, it does well. 6 months from now, it's going to be even better because of all the different features they're going to be implementing, including NPCs that have their own survival groups and all that stuff. But jumping in now is probably a good idea because there's a lot here to keep you occupied. Surviving is very difficult in this game, and it's incredibly hard to survive longer than a month or two when zombies are roaming, when the water gets turned off, when the electricity gets turned off. And that's something that I just can't show in an early look. All I can show you is the basics, how the game works, and how the game plays. So we're going to run back home as well. The last thing I'm going to talk about before I kind of wrap this episode up is the fact that there is a day-night cycle. It runs on military time, so if you're not good at telling military time, you have to learn. But it does run on day-night. And the other thing that is kind of one of the things that I have kind of a gripe with is that at night you kind of get exhausted. Your character becomes drowsy, then we'll go ahead and speed up time. He's getting hungry, but that's fine. We'll eat some food if I have any. We'll eat this ham. Actually, we'll eat this watermelon. He becomes drowsy, tired, and then exhausted, which is cool. I like it. It implements some cool stuff, particularly when you get exhausted. Your awareness is reduced, but one of the features that's not fully implemented yet is the passing out feature, because when you get exhausted, your character says it has a chance of passing out. You could pass out at any moment, in danger of passing out, but that's not in yet. And I think I would really like to see that in, because there are such simple features in this game that can totally change how the game plays. For instance, rain changes how you play. If it starts raining, you might want to get indoors as fast as you can so you don't get wet, slow down, and get sick. Potentially die from being sick if you don't have any medicine. Exhaustion could totally change how the game works. For instance, if I pass out, if I'm out for too long, I become exhausted and I pass out in the middle of nowhere, I could wake up zombie food and just be dead. So it would force another aspect of survival management in the game that I think would do the game really well. But generally speaking, as this game is right now, what it does well enough. I like it a lot. I've played this game for probably close to 100 hours at this point in my career. And I think it's a game everybody who's interested in the genre could easily get into. And I hope you guys definitely give the game a check out. There is a demo available as we speak to go grab up on Steam, and you can try the game out for yourself. You start off infected, so you have 2 days or 3 days to live. So you have 2 or 3 days of checking out the game's mechanics. I haven't even dove into the construction because there's just not enough time. You can build walls, you can build all kinds of stuff. There's a huge, deep, intricate building system in this game that is well worth checking out, as well as barricading doors and windows. You need hammers and nails. It's just very difficult to get all that into one video. If you want to see more of that, if you want to see a much more in-depth look at the game, check out my other videos. There will be daily Zomboid videos on my channel for as far as the eye can see. I hope this was enough to check the game out itself, and I hope you guys enjoy it. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you all next time.